One major function of epithelium is to form barriers of the body, lining surfaces and cavities. But epithelium also forms glands of the body. A gland is simply defined as one or more cells that make and secrete a particular product. The product varies from gland to gland. There are two types of glands found in the body generally. You have the endocrine glands. And if you look at the prefix, got endo in there. Endocrine glands are your internally secreting glands. The other type, exocrine glands, are your externally secreting glands, because they've got that prefix exo in there. So let's talk about each of these. Endocrine glands include the organs of the endocrine system. They're so important in coordinating processes of the body that they have been designated their own organ system. Some of the endocrine glands include the pancreas, the thyroid, the adrenal glands, the ovaries and testes, the pituitary gland. What these glands have in common is that they produce hormones. And hormones are small messenger molecules that circulate in the blood. And through circulating in the blood, they can reach parts of the body far distant from the actual gland that secreted that hormone. Endocrine glands are ductless glands. There's no channel that conducts the hormones to a particular location. This is different from the exocrine glands. Instead, with the endocrine glands, hormones are produced in epithelial cells of the gland and released directly into interstitial fluid. Interstitial fluid, let me spell that out for you, is just another way of saying the extracellular fluid. So hormones are released generally through exocytosis into that extracellular fluid. And from the extracellular fluid, those hormones are taken up into the blood and circulated throughout the body. Endocrine glands are mostly multicellular organs. They have a variety of structures, which you'll get into when you get into the endocrine system. There are some individual hormone-producing cells, they're called the enteroendocrine cells of the gut. And collectively, these individual hormone-producing cells are sometimes called the diffuse endocrine system because they're scattered around the body. Exocrine glands secrete their products onto body surfaces or into body cavities. These include sweat glands, sebaceous glands that release oil onto the surface of your skin. They include salivary glands that release saliva into your mouth, mucus glands in your intestines and respiratory tracts, and the pancreas. Now, I intentionally mentioned the pancreas as an example of both an endocrine gland and an exocrine gland because the pancreas is a bit special. It's a mixed gland. It has both endocrine and exocrine functions. It produces hormones that regulate blood sugar levels, that's its endocrine function, and it produces enzymes that are released into the intestine to digest your food. That's the exocrine function of the pancreas. Exocrine glands can be either unicellular, made up of just a single cell releasing its product, or they can be multicellular, made up of many cells. Unicellular glands secrete their product directly onto a surface by exocytosis. Multicellular exocrine glands secrete their product into channels called ducts. So the endocrine glands are ductless. The exocrine glands do have ducts. So, for example, in here you're seeing the secretory cells, the cells that are actually secreting the product, releasing it into the duct, which carries that product out to the surface. Same in the sweat gland. The secretory cells are down here. They release their product into the duct, which carries that product up to the surface. Sebaceous glands are a bit special. Sebaceous glands actually release their product into the hair follicle, and then the hair follicle acts as the duct and carries the oil up to the surface of your skin. Different types of exocrine glands produce different products. This makes sense if you think about it. Your sweat glands produce a very different substance than your salivary glands, thankfully. You can classify exocrine glands according to kind of the types of solution that they secrete. Serous glands secrete a watery enzyme-containing solution. So the exocrine cells of the pancreas, they're secreting a watery solution full of digestive enzymes. Your sweat glands, they're releasing a watery secretion full of some enzymes and full of salts. Mucus glands secrete mucins, which are a little bit oilier and form a lubricating mucus. So the goblet cells of the large intestine, for example, these are mucus glands, more of a thicker, more viscous, lubricating substance. There are also mixed exocrine glands that contain both types of cells. So if a gland contains both serous secretions and mucus secretions together, it's referred to as a mixed exocrine gland. The salivary glands are an example of this. There are cells in the salivary gland that secrete enzymes and cells in the salivary gland that secrete mucins. So your saliva is a mixture of both. Goblet cells are unicellular mucus exocrine glands. They're found among the columnar epithelium in the intestinal and respiratory tracts. We're looking at a section of the intestine here. Goblet cells secrete mucin via exocytosis, forming a mucus that kind of coats the wall of your intestinal tract. They're called goblet cells because the apical surface of the cell swells with vesicles full of mucin, distorting the columnar shape of the cells. Here's the normal columnar epithelium, the very column-shaped cells. The goblet cell, it's been a little bit distorted because it's a little bit swollen at the apical surface. The mucin also does not pick up stain as well as the rest of the cell, so when you're looking under the microscope, goblet cells have a pale apical region, like you're seeing there and there. There are three possible ways for exocrine glands to release their secretions. In Merocrine secretion, secretions are released by exocytosis. Most exocrine glands use this mode. It's clean, it's neat. You just have a neat little release of product as vesicles within the cell fuse with the plasma membrane. Secretory cells don't rupture. The only thing that's released into the duct is the secretory product. In apocrine secretion, the apical portion of the secretory cell actually breaks off. So here's the basal section, here's the apical section. As the apical section accumulates vesicles full of product, the apical section breaks down and separates from the rest of the cell. Mammary glands actually use this form of secretion. In holocrine secretion, the whole cell ruptures. Holocrine glands just have a clump of secretory cells at the bottom of the duct. The secretory cells at the top of the clump have accumulated so much product that they just burst, releasing the secretion and the cell debris into the duct. These dead cells are replaced by dividing cells at the bottom of the clump. Sebaceous glands in your skin do this. I like to speculate, at least, that this form of secretion might be part of why sebaceous glands contribute to acne, because they're releasing cell debris as well as their product, and it's a rich source of nutrients for the bacteria that might be growing in that hair follicle. Okay, after studying this video, you should be able to answer these questions. You should be able to discuss how endocrine and exocrine glands compare, both by structure and function, so ductless versus ducted. You should also be able to explain what goblet cells are and distinguish between the three types of exocrine secretion.